We all know that North Myrtle Beach is the place to be if you want to experience our state dance, shag. And we all know that before 1968, the name North Myrtle Beach didn't even exist. But here are some facts I bet you didn't know.
The communities were all just separate. They were at that time still the separate wards: Windy Hill, and Crescent, Ocean Drive, Cherry Grove. Windy Hill was kind of a really family-oriented beach. Very few winter residents. Started working actually, like at 12 in a little grocery store that was on the corner of 17 and Main Street, Windy Hill, whatever that avenue is now. And a little putt-putt golf course that was on the highway there. Started working at 12, 13, paper route too. So had some good, good friends, good people, very few people though in the winter. So, we'd go bottle hunting to find soda bottles and turn them in for the refund to get, get a couple cents for a bottle, that kind of thing. So we played jump board. So I don't know if you know what that is. It's kind of like a seesaw, but you have just a board on a foot-high block, and somebody stands on each end of the board, and you jump up and flip them up in the air, and old-timey trampoline type thing, I guess you might say. But you had to make your own fun, and that's what we did. It was a good time to grow up.
The business was E.W. Jerdon Construction Company, and I had a little office there at Windy Hill Beach. And of course, there weren't but 3 contractors, so to speak, here at that time, and I had an opportunity to get involved in some nice commercial work that sort of got me started. And Lloyd Bell was in the house at the time, and he managed for us to get the first welcome center in the state. And that was at Little River, and we built that. And a lot of other buildings up in this north end, of course, Myrtle Beach and other places in the state, but Surfwood Shopping Center, first shopping center that was here. We built that for the Tillman family. The Catholic Church, we did that. The City Hall building in Crescent Beach. And numerous other buildings, some of the first motels up here, and so on and so forth. We did a lot of school work, built the North Myrtle Beach, the new North Myrtle Beach High School, and did a lot of schools in the county and out of the county.
I loved it, and I learned from just some of the best. Joan White, Timmy Morgan, Harry Driver, and a bunch of them, and George Hall. You probably don't remember these names, but anyway, they were good. Maurice Treadway, but we did. And when I was working in the drugstore, this is really funny, Joan would come down there, and when I got my lunch hour, and she'd come down, and we'd just go straight down to the front of that pavilion, and she was just a wonderful shacker. And we would go down there, and we'd spend our hour dancing. And it got so that Joan was so good, and people would throw quarters. You remember when they'd throw quarters on the floor? And everybody would stop, and Joan and Timmy Morgan, or Joan and Don Reed, or Harry Driver, some of those. But she was really good, and I thoroughly enjoy shagging. I learned the old-timey way.
We're really a pretty safe city here. Fortunately, we have no manufacturers, so our hazmat load is very low. We don't have any railroads coming through the city, so we don't have that to deal with, which up north, we had a railroad right through our city that we had situations with it a lot. Highway 31 has decreased the number of trucks carrying hazardous materials through our city. So I think the improvements that have been made in the transportation system around here has definitely assisted us in reducing even the number of accidents on the highway that we have to deal with, of major accidents dealing with large vehicles, because most of the trucks will now bypass the city unless they have a delivery right in the city. But as far as fires, there's a whole list of fires that I can remember. Unfortunately, most of the ones that I remember are the fatal fires. We don't have a lot of fatal fires in the city. We take pride in that. But it seemed like for 5 years in a row we had one every year, and that's very, very difficult. I believe probably the worst scene that I've ever been at in my career was a number of years ago when we had the plane crash, and it killed 6 people. That was very, very hard on our personnel because there was nothing we could do. I mean, when we arrived on scene, the plane was just totally engulfed. And after extinguishment, of course, we had to assist in the removal of the bodies, and seeing some of them were very difficult for our personnel. There's children, and you know, one was an infant and stuff, so that was tough.
The big whale came up, and it was a 20-ton whale. And what started, we hoping it was going to be a nice Friday. We're going to have the weekend off. It was in February or March of 1986, I believe it was. And next thing you know, this whale came in, and all these people wanted to save the whale, and the whale came in for a reason, to die. We had a disease. And we had thousands of people that came up there. We had the national TV networks, all of them. And we were out there having to secure a perimeter around this whale. And for the whole weekend with the people coming up there. And so finally they had to, people had complained so much, we was going to try to get it to sea. So we had a shrimp boat that somebody said they were going to try to help us, and we pulled the whale out in the ocean, ended up blowing the engine on that shrimp boat too. But we got the whale outside. He swam around there for about 2 hours and beached himself half a mile up north in front of the International Inn at the time, which is now Pepper Tree. And we guarded it, and then when they brought in people from SeaWorld and all these places to try to save the whale, and he couldn't. He had, I think it said, a liver disease. But when we made plans to euthanize the whale, that didn't sit good with a faction of the people. And we had 10 arrests real quick that they tried to interfere. They actually had to drill a hole in this whale about so big where a person could fit in to have the needle where they could euthanize the whale. And we had dug a big deep hole. Marine Construction Company, Rayford and Jerry had dug a deep hole beside the whale, and they backed a Lobo in it, and then they pushed the whale on top of it and strapped it, and the tail drug the highway as they took it all the way to the Air Force Base. And they said it was going to let the meat fall off the bones, and that would be in the State Museum, and whether or not that ever happened, I don't know. But that was a big deal too. I didn't forget that.
At the Labor Day, we'd be down in Hoskins, and all these guys would come in and on the hotels, and like myself had printing business, and everybody would say, well, how'd you do this year? What kind of season did you have? Well, did pretty good, did all right. Mance Watkins, he'd always say, well, do you have anything left over? Meaning money. You worked all but you paid everything, but do you have anything left over? And it was hard to have enough left over to last till next April. And Dick Hester, Dick was the president of Farmers Bank. And back then, everybody would borrow a little money, you know, usually in November, October, January, February, to hold over till Easter, because that's when you get a little cash flow. So you go over to the bank and tell Dick, I need to borrow a little bit of money until April. And you know, he'd say, well, how much you need? Well, whatever you need. But he had a little pad on his desk, a little pink slip. And he would just write on this pink slip, Wayne Sweatt, Bay Printing, $2,000, pay in April. and you'd just tear that off, hand it to you, take it up to the clerk. She'd put the money in your account with that little pink slip. So you'd walk in the bank, and that was the main bank. You walk in the bank, you'd see people standing around with those little pink slips, you know.
So as you can see, we're hard at work documenting history for the future North Myrtle Beach Area Historical Museum. And here's one more fact: we need you. Come join us in our effort to preserve North Myrtle Beach area history.